Hi, my name is Brian Buckaloo from Provision Studios, and this is going to be a video called Understanding EQ, which I'm going to cover some of the basic principles behind an EQ plugin. And this is going to be a precursor to a web series I'm going to start called 5 Minute Mix Tips. Those are going to be real short videos where I'm going to just cover one specific topic or one specific um, type of approach to mixing, and I'm going to try to get those up in a more rapid fashion. Some of these longer videos that I do, they take a lot more longer to get edited together, and also to find time to do them. Um, Either way, let's get right into this. This is Understanding EQ, the precursor to 5 Minute Mix Tips. All right. Basically, what we're going to do today is we are going to go over an EQ, what it does, and more importantly, what all those little knobs and all those little lettering and words mean on them. That way you understand an EQ better after you've watched this video. That's the whole purpose of it. This is a stereo mix of a demo version of a song I'm recording with a band I work with, and it's just a demo. We don't even have it all finished yet, but I wanted to use it as an example because I own it and I don't have to get copyright clearance. Okay. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put an EQ on my track. I'm going to use the EQ3 7-band that comes as a stock plugin with Pro Tools. You can use any EQ. It doesn't matter if it comes with your DAW, if it is a third-party plugin you bought from Waves or Universal Audio or whoever else. The terminology and the functionality of an EQ is the same across all DAWs. It doesn't matter what it's from or how it was made. The purpose of an EQ serves one function, and that is to affect your audio in a way that you want it to. Whether it's remove low end rumble, increase the punch on a kick drum, whether you want to cut out some of the sibilance from a vocalist, whether you want to add some high end to some cymbals or just to an overall mix. That's what an EQ's for. That's what it's built for, and I'm here to show you today how to not just to do some of those things, but why they work. Okay. First things first is you're going to see at the top of Pro Tools EQ3, you've got an in and an out. These meters show you the level of your signal going in and going out, and they work pretty much like this. All right. I can control the level of my input right here with this knob. This would turn down my signal going into my EQ plugin by 10 dB. And there it is. It was hitting originally at -6, now it's at -16. So it has reduced my signal 10 dB. Notice that it also reduced the output. Turning down my input obviously affected what is coming out of the EQ. All right, I'm going to reset that. Holding the Alt button and clicking on any button or knob resets it to default. The output knob will reduce or increase the level of the signal coming out of the EQ. So if I turn this down, you will notice my signal going in is still hitting at -6, but now it is down 13.5 dB from the signal that is going in. So the output knob will only affect what's going out. obviously. Okay. The purpose of that, anytime you increase or decrease a frequency over here, it is going to change what is going on here. So let's say you, just for an example, we let's say at 535 hertz, we increase it. I'm going to do this drastically. Let's say we increase it at 10 dB. We are no longer going to hit at -6 here. We have introduced 10 more dB of signal into our mix. So you can see what's going on here. We actually clipped right there. Okay. We have increased the output. Now, the input stayed the same. The input was still at -6, but we have increased what is coming out of the EQ by increasing 535 or 536 hertz by 10 dB. The purpose of this output knob then would be to level match what we've done here in the EQ. So right there now, I have taken this frequency that we've added, this 10 dB we've added of 536 hertz, and I've level matched it by removing turning my output out of the EQ down by 5.8 dB. So now my mix will not be any louder, even though I have increased that frequency. That is ideal EQ usage. You don't ever want to be making your signals all different every time you run them through an EQ. You want to that sort of will make it that much harder to mix. If, let's say, you start bypassing things and wanting to hear how your mix sounds without a certain EQ or something like that, if you start bypassing stuff and you have not level matched here, you're going to find that your faders are you're going to be turning stuff up and down all the time every time you want to hear how something sounds with and without a certain plug-in. So if you level match, you can mix your song with your faders, and then you could go and bypass stuff, and your mix will never be out of whack level wise because you're not mixing. You're not level mixing with the effects. You are using the effects to enhance frequencies. So that is one way to approach using an EQ. I'm going to reset this stuff back to default, and I'm going to go into the next section of the EQ3 from Pro Tools. This is the filtering section. You have a notch filter, and then you have a high pass filter here. Again, you have another notch filter, and then a low pass filter here. That's what the LPF stands for, low pass filter and high pass filter. You'll notice that on the high pass filter, it's going this way, and then on the low pass filter, it's going this way. The reason being is that the low pass filter is going to cut all the frequencies below what your frequency is set at here, and allow all the frequencies above this to pass through. So in this case, all the frequencies below 115 hertz are being removed from my signal. All the frequencies above 115 hertz are remaining in my mix. On the other side of it, all the frequencies below 1.6 kilohertz are remaining in my mix, and all the frequencies above 1.65 kilohertz are being removed from my mix. This type of filtering is sometimes referred to as a cone filter, and you will see this a lot in anytime you're wanting to add like a telephone or like a radio type of effect onto a vocal or a mix. So it would sound like this. It almost sounds like it's underwater. Again, I'm going to level match. So my mix is not any louder or any softer, even though I've removed all these frequencies. My mix is still the same volume. That's why it's so important to understand the concept of level matching with your levels in an EQ. Okay, again, I will reset. Let's look at the notch. If you select the notch filter option in the high pass filter, for example, you will see the Q is at 1 and our frequency is at 20. I'm going to turn this up a little bit so we can see it out here. So now I'm at 785 hertz, and our Q, I'm going to narrow it. The lower the number, the narrower the bandwidth. So you can see we have removed 785 hertz from our mix. Now 785 is back in our mix. Removed. Back in. Okay. That's what a notch filter can do. It is very effective form of mixing when you have a frequency that you don't like and it is causing problems in your mix. You would use a notch filter. One case where you would want to use a notch filter would be for a vocalist that is singing and he's getting a lot of sibilances, S's out of his, into the microphone. A notch filter would be a perfect way to de-ess the vocal. I mean, you could use a de-ess plug-in, sure, but if you've got a 7-band, think of the processing power you could save by using a notch filter instead of putting another plug-in to remove your sibilances. You could do it right from your EQ and save some of that processing power. Do your regular EQing that you want to do to your track, and also use your notch filter to help remove some of your problematic frequencies. Very powerful feature that you can employ with the EQ3. Let's say, for example, you don't have a notch filter button like that on your EQ inside of your DAW. Another way to recreate one similarly to get the same effect would be on any band to make a narrow Q, turn the gain all the way down, and remove the frequency you want. So I've accomplished the same thing as the notch filter did by creating a notch filter on a band. And again, this is a good way of finding problematic frequencies. I call it frequency sweeping. What I will do is I will over-exaggerate. I will make a narrow Q, over-exaggerate a frequency increase, and then I will sweep through while my mix is playing, or my track. Let's say it's a bass track, and I got some kind of bad sound that I'm hearing. I can sweep through while the track plays back to find out where the bad sound is, just like this. So now I've just removed 3.4 kilohertz from my mix because I didn't like that frequency. That is a great way of using a notch filter by using it, you're sort of reversing it. You're increasing the frequency, that you're increasing a frequency range so you can hear what's bad, so that you know that you can remove it by removing the gain or turning the gain down. Okay. Again, I will reset. Now I'm going to go into the lower 5 bands here. I'm going to start at the top and look at the Q. I know we've sort of already looked at Q here, and I've said the word bandwidth. That is another name for what Q stands for. Q is pretty much the bandwidth or the area that a certain band is going to affect. The lower the number, the wider the bandwidth. The higher the number, the lower the bandwidth. The frequency is that it is the frequency that you are affecting, and the gain is the decibel amount that you are increasing or attenuating. So right at this point right here, I have a Q of 10, a frequency of 100 hertz, and a gain reduction of negative 5.7 dB. Here on, and then you can turn it off just like this with the end knob. The end knob turns it on and off. Okay. If I go here, and let's say I hit in, you're going to see this crazy thing. I have a if I turn my Q wide, you can see that leveled out that shelf completely. By turning it up, it made it very drastic. Okay. What a low, in this case, this is a low shelf. What a low shelf will do is it will increase or remove all the frequencies below a certain frequency range. And you saw by what I was able to do with my Q, I can make it a rather steep drop off or a very gradual drop off. It all depends on what I'm trying to do there. Go back to 1. Okay. So the advantage of this would be, let's say I want to add some more low end to my kick drum. It's just when I recorded it, I didn't have the mic placed properly, and I'm just not getting enough punch. You can literally turn up all of your low end on your kick drum by putting on a low shelf. So all the frequencies below 60 hertz now will be boosted 2.2 dB. You can also do it to a mix. Let's say your mix is sounding a little thin. You can add some low end with a low shelf, just like that. On the other end, you have it right here as well. You can add, let's say your mix sounds a little, what's the word I would want to use? A little, it doesn't sound like it has that brightness to it that you'd like to hear. You can add a high shelf at, let's say, 10 kilohertz, and it will add high-end sparkle to your mix, giving you more of a high production kind of sound to your tracks. Reverse of that, you can remove all the frequencies below 10 kilohertz. If you're maybe, let's say your mix is sounding too bright and you want to cut out some of that high end, a shelf, again, is the way you'd want to do that. It is not a high pass filter. It is not a low pass filter. Shelves are more gradual and they do not roll off completely. A filter has a complete roll off. A shelf simply dips and then it levels off. So that's the difference between a shelf and a filter, or shelf and a filter, right? All the bands in the middle would act as just like regular notches. You can, with your Q, you can make them as narrow or as wide as you'd like. And it would not be crazy to see an EQ set up like this as you're sweeping through. Again, make it a narrow Q, increase your level, hit playback on your track, and sweep through. and then you find a frequency that let's say it's a frequency you do like. Okay, yeah, that's good. Then you bring it back down to a more optimal level, and maybe reduce your Q a little bit to widen out your bandwidth. It would not be odd to see an EQ set up like this for certain sounds or certain things. Again, I will reset. A good thing to do would be to use your presets and study them. Let's say you got an acoustic guitar, add sparkle. Look what it did. It introduced, basically starting at 5.5 kilohertz, it introduced 3 dB with a 0.2 Q. Now that's rolling off, you can see here, because it's not a shelf. It's just it's a regular notch. So had they done this, let's say 5. I'm just going to try to mimic the setting they used, so you can see the difference that this is going to do. All right. So this would be if you used a high shelf. And this is the way they did it, which is, this would sound more natural and would not keep those upper frequencies in the from being increased. It's just you're trying to increase 5.5 in the surrounding frequencies. So the boost is not going to be as high up here, whereas on a high shelf it is. You can see how it goes. It continues to increase there. Okay. So in mixing, I always tell people, don't necessarily be concerned with rules. Don't necessarily try to be concerned with what someone is telling you is the way that it needs to be done. Pick up some knowledge. There's many different tools, many different ways to do the same thing. Find the way that works best for you. If you're getting the sound that you like, what does it matter how you get it? You should find the tools that get you the results that you want. It may take you more time if you don't understand the way that you're going about things, and that's why I'm doing videos like this. The intent of this video is so that you are understanding the way the tool works. Now, you can go and take the knowledge and use it to the way that you would like to employ it. Okay. If you have any questions about what I've shown you today, or you'd like to see me use this EQ or any EQ to apply a certain effect or something, send me an email, brianbuckalew@yahoo.com. That's BrianBuckalew@yahoo.com. You can leave a comment in the video below, and I'll try to answer them as soon as I can. Until then, look for my next video, which will be a 5-minute mix tip, which is going to cover certain strategies for, let's say, mixing individual tracks like a bass, a kick drum, a vocal. It's not going to be over a whole mix. I'm going to focus on specific tracks, so we can start seeing how some of these strategies would be used on individual tracks, and we can sort of zero in more and make it a quicker video than me trying to explain an entire mix. Okay? Thank you very much. You have a blessed day.
your love is